thousands and thousands of green cards that are approved under this category. I see more people are joining in. I want to welcome everyone from around the world to our presentation. People come in sometimes a little bit later, but don't worry that you haven't missed too much at this point. So, it's always important to understand who can assist you in a process like this. So here are just some. We're a much larger law firm, but you see some of the attorneys in our office that dedicate themselves to EB-2 NIWs. Okay, we have a very strong team that focuses on EB-2 NIW applications from clients from all over the world. We have received the highest rating that a law firm in the US has received, which is an AV rating. That is not a rating that we have any influence over. That is chosen by your peers, by other attorneys, other professionals in the field. So it's quite an honor to receive the highest rating that a law firm can have. And there's a lot of immigration attorneys. Not everybody focuses on the EB-2 national interest waivers. We do a lot of EB-1As as well, of course, and EB-3s, but EB-2 NIW is our core practice, especially the last few years, that the EB-2 has become a great option for individuals that are looking to immigrate legally to the United States like you all. So why are you here today? You sent us your profile, we reviewed your profile, and based on your CV or the information that you shared with us, we receive a lot of requests, okay? We're very conservative in the type of cases that we accept. And the reason why you're invited today to this webinar is individually, we want to be able to share this with you, have this information, and then, like I said, individually do a chat to make sure that we're all on the same page. So today we're going to cover a little bit something a little more broad, and then we'll get into your specific case later on. Who you're going to choose to do your application with is always very important, because not every attorney, not every U.S. immigration attorney is going to have the same level of experience in the NIW field. Just because you're a U.S. immigration lawyer, it does not mean that you're going to have that experience in NIWs. So it's always a good idea to know who you're hiring. Some news that I want to share with you: Attorney Mandy Nees joined our law firm about a month or two ago. Mandy was a USCIS, or the Department of Immigration here is called USCIS, is immigration. She was an adjudicator, an officer at U.S. Immigration for 13 years, deciding these kinds of cases, the cases that we're talking about today, EB-2. It's great to have somebody who was on the other side handling the approvals of EB-2 NIW cases join our firm. We feel very, very lucky, blessed to have a professional like her joining our law firm. I think it also says that immigration respects the processes that we file, as I'm sure that Mandy saw a lot of our cases as well. But, it's always good to see that immigration officers come and join your firm. It's always a plus. And also for our clients, it's a benefit to have not only the 25 years of experience that we have, but also to be able to have someone who was an adjudicator, who was an officer with immigration, join our team is always a plus for our clients to continue with the success that we have and the quality of cases that we present. So, some questions that I always like to ask clients from, independent of where you are from. And today we have people from all over the world that are here in this webinar today. I'm here in Orlando, in Florida. That's where our main office is, here in the state of Florida in Orlando. So people that keep coming in the webinar, welcome. But some of the questions that I always like to ask some of my clients, which is important whether you're considering an EB-2 NIW or other type of applications, what are the reasons for immigrating or you wanting to immigrate to the US? Independent of the country of origin, the reasons are always pretty much the same. A better future for yourself as a professional, better future for your children, more opportunities. Sometimes I'm an immigrant myself. Hi, Maxwell, how are you? Yes. No, there will not be a replay of this. This is not something that is replayed, Maxwell. So better future for yourself, but also I understand, when we immigrated to the US, my parents wanted a better future for myself, for my sisters, but also sometimes our countries may have some instability. It can be instability due to political reasons, due to financial reasons, usually reasons why people want to immigrate to the US. So when you want to immigrate also plays a role because certain applications can take a very long time. One of the great benefits, and we're going to touch on that today about the EB-2 NIW, is that for a green card process for US permanent residency, the EB-2 NIW is a fairly fast process, one of the fastest ways you can get a green card today. We're going to touch on the timing a little bit later on today. Having a sponsor. This is a very typical question. An American company that is willing to sponsor you. That's one of the perhaps most common ways that people know that's one way to immigrate to the US. Having a company in the US that is willing to sponsor you. Right now, following the pandemic, the US economy needs to recover, okay? So it needs to have professionals, it needs to have individuals like yourselves that can contribute to the US economy in a positive way, contribute in a way that it can help recover not only the US, but have an impact perhaps globally, following the few years of pandemic shutdowns, et cetera. So there's no mystery, and this is available all over the internet as well, that the US will need, in order to keep up being the largest economy in the world, without immigration, that will be impossible because there's not enough American workers, especially at the high level, to continue that growth. So attracting talented professionals like yourselves is one of the goals of this administration. President Biden, that administration that we have currently is pro-immigration. And they have made it very clear that they want to incentivize. The problem is an American company sponsoring you, it's quite a process. It takes a long time for that company to sponsor you for a green card. Right now, over 2 years on average. And once you have the green card, you are free. You're not tied to that company. So getting a company, an American company, to sponsor you for a US green card, especially if you're abroad, is very, very difficult nowadays. So a lot of people that are very talented, those companies they may want to give you a job, but they're not going to sponsor you because it's a cost for them. It takes a few years, and companies are not usually going to wait a few years for you to start working. And once you have that green card, you're not tied to them. So why are they going to go through that process? One of the great benefits of the EB-2 NIW is that you do not need the sponsorship from any company in the US. You, based on your talent, on your professional abilities, you self-sponsor. That means you apply by yourself without the need of a company in the US helping you to sponsor you. You don't need a family member in the US in order to apply for the NIW. So these are some of the great benefits that you have with an EB-2 NIW. Money for an investor visa. Yes, there are green cards that are available through investment, but do you all know how much currently it costs to get a green card through investment? Minimum $800,000. The EB-5 changed. It used to be $500,000. Now minimum is $800,000, plus all the costs associated with an attorney, with a project. You can easily spend $900,000 as an investor to obtain a green card. That's the cost that the US government has put on a green card. The EB-2 NIW does not require that you make an investment in the US. That is not a requirement of the NIW. Again, it's based on your professional background, and we're going to talk about the requirements right now. Having money to hire a lawyer, you don't have to hire me, obviously, or my law firm. Make sure that you feel comfortable, like I mentioned earlier, with who you're going to work with, because this is an important process. Filing for a green card is a process. You need experienced attorneys to help you in this process. So that will have a cost. I'm going to share those costs not only at the end of this presentation, but we're also going to send them to you via email. So make sure you understand that, there's certain visas where you don't need an attorney. If you apply for a simple tourist visa, B1, B2, or a student visa, you don't need to hire me or an attorney most of the time to do those. Those are a very simple process. An EB-2 NIW, I highly, highly recommend that you hire an experienced law firm, an experienced attorney that handles specifically NIWs, because again, doing general immigration is usually not enough. All right, let's talk about what are the requirements for an EB-2 NIW. How do you qualify for this visa? Sometimes we say visa, but keep in mind, this is a green card. This is U.S. permanent residency. So first of all, you have to have a certain level of education, okay? There's two basic requirements: education and experience, and national interest. There's one other way, but we're going to talk about the easiest, most direct way to meet the first requirement, okay? First requirement, education. So under the education requirement, there's two ways you can qualify for the NIW. You can have a master's or a PhD, a doctorate. Now, that has to be recognized in the US. So usually for a master's degree, if you did not obtain it in the US, I'm talking about degrees that are outside of a university in the United States. So if you graduated from a university in, I don't know, Egypt, or in England, or in France, or in the Philippines, or in Nigeria, then it has to be the equivalent of a master's degree or a PhD in the US. That's one way you can qualify. Or, and this is sometimes more common, you may have a bachelor's degree. So usually for a bachelor's degree to be recognized in the US, it's 4 years of university in order to get that degree. So bachelor's degree, university bachelor's degree. And after you obtain that degree, you have 5 years or more of experience in the field. So for example, let's say, let me grab a name here. Let's say that Arnell has a degree in, I don't know, in civil engineering from a university in the Philippines, studied 5 years to obtain that civil engineer degree, and right now has 6 years of postgraduate experience. Arnell would meet that requirement, okay? What do we need to prove? What do we need to prove this we're going to send a degree. You're going to give us a copy. We don't need originals, okay? Immigration does not require originals to apply for the EB-2 and IW. Copies are sufficient. You're going to upload them to our system, but copies of your degrees, if you have more than one degree, and we need your transcripts, the credits you obtain at the university, so your university transcripts and your degree. And with that information, we're going to obtain as an equivalency for the EB-2 and IW. That is included in our fees. You're going to see in our fees, we include everything you need so you don't have any surprises with costs. So you provide that information, we're going to send it to the equivalency agency, and they're going to say yes. So that is the requirement on education or education and experience. If you have a master's or a doctorate or a PhD, technically you don't need the 5 years of experience because you already meet the requirement by having the master's or a doctorate. The years of experience becomes more relevant if you don't have that master's or the PhD. If you only have the bachelor's degree, then you're going to need that 5 years of progressive experience in order to qualify. Okay, so that's point number one. This is fairly straightforward, fairly direct in understanding who qualifies. Sometimes there are some applicants that don't have the level of education or education and experience necessary. And then you have a second way to qualify, which is called exceptional ability. Exceptional ability is a little bit more complicated because you have to meet 3 requirements from the list that you see here on your screens. It could be a degree that is perhaps more of a technical degree. It's not a 4-year bachelor's degree, something that is maybe a little bit less. Then you have to have 10 years of experience in the profession or more. And then another of the requirements there, those are usually those first 2 are very common ways to qualify. And then maybe you have a license to practice the profession, a membership in a professional association, maybe a high salary. That's another way you can qualify. Now, keep in mind, because a lot of people get confused, you do not need to prove exceptional ability if you meet those other requirements that we talked about first. Master's or PhD, or a bachelor's and 5 years or more of experience. Okay, so if you meet that, forget about exceptional ability. You don't have to prove exceptional ability. But exceptional ability is another way when you don't meet those education requirements. All right, so that's the first part of the analysis, the process that you have to go through. The second part is a little bit more subjective, okay? And it's a little bit harder for people to understand, you as potential clients, but also I think that a lot of times even some immigration attorneys don't fully understand how national interest works. And that is the way that U.S. immigration law is. You have to be a little bit creative sometimes. Of course, you always have to be honest in what you present to immigration, but understand that national interest does not mean that you need to come and cure cancer in the US, or you need to come and have demonstrated that you have won a Nobel Peace Prize or a Nobel Prize in Science. No, it's not at that level. National interest is a definition that carries a lot of different analysis. So a lot of times, the easiest way for me to explain it to clients and how we're going to work together to put the case presentation to immigration is by having these questions: what, who, how, where, and why. Okay. That helps you understand what immigration is looking for, but it also helps us understand how it can work. And sometimes there you can see who can help you with your proposal. Sometimes the word proposal or endeavor, you see the word endeavor used a lot. And I want you to understand that immigration doesn't have a list of things that qualify, or a list of professions that qualify for the NIW, and a list of professions that don't qualify. It doesn't work like that. Technically, any professional in business, in science, in art can qualify, okay? So long as it meets those educational requirements and we can demonstrate national interest. So what is that? So I always start with the what. Is there a problem, an issue, an opportunity in the US, something where you as a professional can come and contribute, even if it's in a small way, in some positive way, okay? We have clients in all fields. And a lot of the time, our clients will tell you that they didn't think that they would meet this national interest category because they're normal professionals. They're not extraordinary. They haven't won awards and recognitions, but you don't need to have awards and recognitions. What you need to show is I can contribute as a professional in a positive way. So if you start with what is that I can do, and most of the time when you ask that to a client, they're going to say, I want to go and I want to work in the US. Of course, that's what you want to do. But it's not you coming and working in the US. So a lot of times I take the example of myself. I'm an immigration attorney. I have 25 years of experience. So how would I present my situation? Well, I wouldn't say to immigration, I'm an immigration attorney. Obviously, I have a doctorate because I studied law and I graduated from a university. And I'm an immigration attorney and I'm going to open an immigration law firm. That's not of national interest. Saying that I'm just going to work as a lawyer is not of national interest, okay? I can, however, say there is an issue in the United States. What's that issue? The United States needs professionals, high-level, experienced professionals that can contribute in a positive way to the US economy. My job is going to be to attract those people from all over the world, and I'm going to show statistics showing that without immigration, the US will not be able to compete with other countries like China, like India, like Canada even, that are attracting the brightest and the best from around the world. We cannot, as the US, stay behind and not attract the brightest and the best. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attract the brightest and the best, like you, in order to have a positive impact in the United States. Immigrants, it has shown more than half of Fortune 500 companies were created by immigrants. So immigrants will create jobs. They will have an impact in different fields. It's going to help perhaps certain areas in the United States that need those professionals. So for example, we represent a lot of doctors that go and work in rural areas, or they work in areas where there's a need for doctors. We represent a lot of engineers. We represent all kinds of professionals that can have a positive impact. So the way I would present my endeavor, my proposal, is to contribute in that positive way by attracting professionals like you. I wouldn't say I'm an immigration lawyer and I'm going to work as a lawyer. That is not enough. Okay, so I think that maybe that helps you understand sort of how we're going to work through that. Now, one of the big advantages of the EB-2 NIW is that the application itself is all in writing. It is all submitted to USCIS, that's United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, that is located here in the US. It doesn't matter where you are around the world. The application, we will mail it in to USCIS. There's two offices that look at that application. Texas, the Texas Service Center, and Nebraska, okay? Most of them go to Texas, but Nebraska does some also. So we're gonna mail that in. The advantage of that is that you and our team will have the time to prepare a well-presented application. So you're going to work with our attorneys to put together a endeavor, okay, in a way that makes sense, the way that it makes, because immigration is not really the real world. The way that an officer in immigration wants for you to explain this, it's not the way that you would explain it in the normal world, because this is the legal world of immigration. So because we have thousands of cases, we know what immigration wants to see, and you're going to follow our guidelines, our models, okay? Obviously, the what, okay, your endeavor is going to come from you, and then we're going to help you modify it in a way that makes sense for immigration, okay? Understand that this is a prospective, because most of you are not going to be here in the US, but even if you are here in the US, it doesn't mean that you're doing this right now. This is what you intend to do. Obviously, when you present that, you have to have the intention to do that. Of course, things could change, but this is not a conditional green card. This is a permanent green card that is given to you based on what you intend to do at the time that you apply for this. But most of this information is going to be future prospective application of what you may do down the road. And it's all a proposal in writing that we submit to immigration. So that is a huge advantage, because this is not you going to an interview or you going in front of a judge or an officer and having to present this yourselves. We're going to present this together as a team. Some other examples of how you may qualify for EB-2. Here you have certain examples, but again, don't think that if you're not in this list that you're not going to qualify, because we have all kinds of professionals that we have represented. Of course, there are certain professions that may be a little bit easier than others to present, but again, there's not a list of people that qualify, people that don't. So here you have some it could be research, an innovative idea. Maybe you're working on something that is unique. Maybe your work experience can have some positive impact, either creating jobs or having some kind of positive economic effect. Maybe you've done that in your country, and we can show that you're likely to do the same thing here. It could be artistic, cultural, medicine, educational. There you have more examples. Energy, infrastructure is something very big. Agriculture. Again, it could be all kinds of fields that could have a positive impact. We're going to, of course, also send you a list of documents to give you ideas of what you need to give us. We're not going to need any originals for this, so don't worry about that. But sometimes here are some examples. If you have colleagues or companies that may have interest in working with you down the road in the US, it doesn't, you don't need to talk about immigration, because again, there's no sponsorship requirement. But if you have certain colleagues or companies or people that may have interest in working with you down the road, great. Maybe you are working on something where you're going to have a critical role. let's discuss what you intend to do. Again, these are just some ideas. Professionals sometimes get discouraged because they think that this is extremely difficult. But in reality, if you know how to present these cases, it is not as complicated as people may think. And these are what happens with the EB-2, as with other immigration things, is that sometimes it's difficult because it's a political thing. Immigration is not really approving a lot of them, and then it changes. The EB-2 and IW changed quite a bit at the end of 2016, okay? What happened it was December 2016, there was a decision, an appeal that was decided. And in that decision, immigration changed who may qualify for an NIW. It used to be a lot more difficult, okay? Before 2016, you had to be pretty amazing. The requirements were very, very difficult. But immigration made it not a change in the law, but in the way that immigration interprets who can qualify for an NIW. And that decision changed who may qualify. So some of you may not have qualified prior to 2016, but you will qualify today. So that's important to understand, because it then took 1 or 2 years for immigration to really implement that. And we started seeing the big impact in 2018, 2019, 2020. The Trump administration was more difficult, but the Biden administration said, no, we want to incentivize these professionals. So this is a great time for NIW. It may eventually change again, okay? I'm going to share some news with you as to why I think this is the best time to do this. But let's talk about the steps first, how it works. Again, for you that maybe some of you entered a little bit late, we're going to send you a link where you can schedule an individual consultation with us, okay? After you understand what we're going through today, you'll be much better prepared. And then we can decide. We're also going to send you the costs. I'm going to share briefly the cost with you in just a few minutes, but you're going to get a document with all the costs, so there's no surprises, so you can do your budget as well. If we decide, yes, you have a strong case, from our side, we're comfortable, we're going to take the case. From your side, you review the cost, you're comfortable with everything and you want to do it, obviously, then we go to a signed contract. And then we're going to start sharing documents. You're going to send us the documents we need. We're going to send you some of the examples so we can start working on the details. We're going to prepare that I-140. The I-140 is the application that is used to apply for the EB-2, okay? There's 2 parts to any green card application, especially in EB-2 and IW. There's the I-140 case. That's the actual application for the EB-2 and IW. Again, that is sent to USCIS. We put the packet together and we send it to immigration here in the US. Immigration is going to review that, and they're going to do one of 2 things. They're going to approve the case, or sometimes, and don't be discouraged if this happens, it happens a lot. Immigration may say, we want more documents. It's called a request for evidence. Today, that happens about 60, 70% of the time. Unfortunately, that's the government, a bureaucracy, but they do that. Sometimes they do that to buy more time. We respond to that, and then hopefully that case is approved. Once the I-140, that's the hardest part, okay? That's the application for the EB-2 and IW. That's the main part of the case. So that part number 1 is, it's really, I would say 80% of the case is that. Once they approved the I-140, then if you are abroad, you go to what's called consular processing, which is you go to the embassy, the US embassy in your country, and there you have to do certain medical exams, and then you'll have an interview, and they will approve your green card. If you're in the US, it's a little bit different. We may have to file what's called an adjustment of status, and that way you don't go through the embassy. but most of you are probably going to be abroad. You're going to go to the embassy, you're going to get the green card, and then you're going to come to the US as a permanent resident. So when you enter the US, you're going to enter as a green card holder, okay? That's the process in a nutshell. How long does it take? Putting together a good case, on average, it can be less, it can be more, depending on the client, depending on the situation. Usually about 2 to 3 months is typical to put together a good case. Getting the certification of your degrees, putting together everything, typical 60, 90 days is very typical. Right now, the processing time for EB-2 and IWs is very fast. On average, what we are seeing is 2 to 6 months. It could be a little bit less, it could be a little bit more, but on average, that's what we're seeing for the I-140, the first part. That's very fast, okay? I would say 2 years ago, it was much longer processing times, over a year. So for that I-140, 2 to 6 months is very, very quick. There is a way now, to do what's called premium processing, which was just opened for all applications last month, okay? And so January of 2023, they opened the EB-2 NIW premium processing, and they will decide. You have to pay a fee. It's a sort of high fee, $2,500 to immigration, not to us, to immigration. And they will decide the case in 45 days, okay? It's not really necessary for everyone because they're processing the cases fairly fast, but that is an option that you have if you want to pay that extra fee. The entire process nowadays, on average, is taking about a year. Depends. Some consulates could be a little bit slower than others, but from the time you start until you get a green card, a year and a few months is typical. The key, of course, is obtaining that I-140 approval. Then sometimes waiting for the consular interview can be an issue with, sometimes the consulates could take a little bit longer. But once you have that I-140 approval, you're almost there. You're almost at the green card. Who is included in the application for this green card? So on the I-140, you, as the principal applicant, as the professional, are going to be the person that is applying, okay? Your spouse is not applying. Your children are not applying. Only you. You may list them on the application if you're married or you have children, but it's not going to change the chance of winning that I-140, number one, and it's not going to change whether you can include them down the road or not. So it's better to list them if you are married and have children at the time we apply for that I-140, but they are not going to be applying for anything. You will be applying for the green card when you do the I-140. Once that is approved and it goes for the consular processing or the adjustment of status, then your family members will come join you, okay, in the application, and we will file applications for them to get the green cards along with you as the applicant. So not only for this green card, but any green card application, the only people that will be able to obtain the green card with you are your spouse and your children under 21, okay? They have to be less than 21 years old when we apply for the I-140, unmarried, so not married. And if that's the case when we apply, if they're under 21, unmarried, they should be able to get the green card along with you. And your spouse, you have to be married under the civil laws of your country, legally married under the civil laws of your country, for your spouse to also get the green card with you. Nobody else, U.S. immigration doesn't recognize anyone else for green card purposes as a family member. Spouse, civilly married, and your children under 21 unmarried, okay? That's how it works. After you have your green card, you can become a US citizen if you want to. You don't need to. You can live permanently in the US with this green card. But if you want to become a citizen, you have to wait 5 years to be able to apply for US citizenship. There's other minor requirements, physical presence half the time, good moral character, things like that. But 5 years after getting your green card is when you are eligible to apply for citizenship. Let me share a few interesting or some interesting news regarding NIW, and then we can do some questions. I'll also share with you real quick some of the costs associated with this. But let me get this information from, this is the USCIS website that I'm going to go on. And you can see really interesting information. Now, this is for certain, oh, this is in Spanish, so let's not do that one. Let's see here. All right. I'm going to go to the USCIS website. Now, this is for certain types of applicants. I don't want you to get discouraged, but this shows you why immigration lately has been so positive